Come and make an ancient oil lamp with me. Hello, I'm Athena Mariah with Hard Shell Slimy Snail, and today we are going to make an ancient oil lamp. There's an old scripture that says in Psalms 119 verse 105, "Your word is a lamp to my foot and a light for my path." And I've always been curious about ancient technology. Obviously, they didn't have electricity back then, so their lamps weren't just a plug-in lamp. So I was fascinated how they made these lamps. What did they look like? And a lot of the lamps from ancient times were made out of pottery. The time frame for the lamp that we're going to be making today is from the Herodian time frame. This was named after King Herod. So this time frame spans a little bit before Jesus was born and kind of including the time that he grew up. It kind of flows into the Roman time frame, right? So you see a lot of the Roman influence on pottery at that time. So this is a replica that I made of a Herodian lamp. And so the size and the shape, I did make the handle a little bit bigger than it was in the picture, but this is pretty close to the shape and size that they would have made. This is greenware. I have not fired this yet, so it is going to shrink a little bit. But it had a reservoir for where the oil went in, and this little hole is where the wick comes out, and that's where you would light it. And so today we're going to make a little oil lamp. I'm going to be making my oil lamp with just hand building techniques. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm just going to flatten the clay to make a slab. Once it starts getting flatter, you could start rolling it out with your handy dandy rolling pin. So I like kind of starting from the middle, working my way out to the edges. And then it's important to flip it, otherwise it starts sticking to the surface. I'm using a sheetrock masonite board. You could also use a piece of cloth to roll your slab out so it doesn't stick to the table. I have these guides. These are a 1/4 of an inch. I actually want it to be 3/8 of an inch, so they're a little bit short. So it just helps you roll out your clay to an even consistency, but I'm just going to make sure I don't roll it quite that flat. So now I'm satisfied with that. I'm going to use a smoothing tool, a rubber rib, and this helps compress the clay, but it helps prevent warping, cracking, air bubbles, all that fun stuff. And then I'll flip it and do the other side. There we go. Now we have our slab. Because I'm doing this as a slab project, I created templates for my oil lamp. I just used like a circle ruler, and I created a tail for the handle. I made a small template for my little oil lamp, and then this is for just the regular sized oil lamp. Now it has a little circle that I glued into the middle of it, and that's where the reservoir is, just to help make sure I have it centered properly, and it helps create a little bit of like a groove in it. So what I did is I just made this out of foam, you know, like a craft foam. I will add a link to the template design that I made so that you could save it and print it into the description below. Now I'm going to make a top and a bottom. The top is going to have this little hole and the tail, and the bottom is just going to be this circle part, right, and the spout. We'll do the bottom part first. I don't have to press that one down. And I just use my knife tool and go around and cut out that shape. And it's always nice to kind of go out to the edge so that it makes it easier to remove the clay. All right, so now I'm going to flip it on the bottom so that this raised little circle can be pressed down. And you could use your rolling pin to press that down and just kind of go different directions to make sure it's even. Okay. And now I'm going to cut out the whole design. And again, I'll go to the edge to make it easier to pick up. I will just take off the excess clay around the edges. I use my spinny wheel thingy. I can't think of what it's called. I never can. This is what we're going to use to do the project on. And I have a smaller piece of sheetrock to do the project on. So I am going to put my maker's mark on the bottom. I have a made stamp. If you want to carve your initials or if you have a stamp, whatever you want to do for your maker's mark, do that first on the bottom. And then we'll flip it. And now we're going to get the shape. I'm going to just use my thumbs, kind of press my thumbs in while I'm peeling it back with my fingers and creating that bowl shape. Going all the way around, creating a bowl shape. And then when you get to the spout, you could just pinch it like that. And then we're going to want to pull up the front so that it's level with the sides. And then if you need to use your smoothing tool, you want to make sure that this little reservoir is not covered in clay in any way. You want it to be as smooth as you could get it so that when it dries it doesn't get chunks. You want it to be open for your wick. Okay, so that's the bottom. Use my scoring tool to score the sides. So now we'll work on the top part. Let's set this down. I want to be careful with that tail. Okay, so what we really want to do is compress the tail and make sure, because this is going to be the most fragile part, and it's actually too long. I need to shorten it. I made it too long. I need to make an adjustment to my template. And I like to make the sides of the tail kind of smooth and curved so they don't have any sharp edges. Okay, and definitely want to make, you know, this joint area nice and compressed because we don't want any cracks. And we're going to repeat it. Compress this joint, compress the tail, smooth the sides, kind of round the edges. Going to curl. I want it to be nice and wet when I'm doing this because I do not want it to crack. Add pressure to it as you're curling it. And I already know this is way, 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 way too long, so I'm gonna cut like an inch off. Because they are really small in the picture. Okay, I think that's good. Oh, it's just a little handle. So cute. It's kind of chubby. I like it. All right, so now we want to attach that, and then I'm going to use my smoothing tool and just smooth it and smush it into there. so that it's all one. Then I always like using my paintbrush after I smooth it, and smooth it further with the paintbrush. And this is where we're gonna have to be careful for our little handle that we made. See if I can hang it off a little bit. So again, I'm just kind of creating this bowl shape and supporting that handle because I don't want it to crack. Okay, so now I'm going to score it all the way around. And then I'm going to use my slip and slip it together. I'm gonna keep my hand. I don't want to let go of it. I don't want it to break on me, so I'm gonna slip the bottom. So now I'm going to add the bottom to the top. I'm just smoothing out the sides. Sometimes, like, as you work it into a different shape, it creates a little bit of fractures and cracks. So you definitely want to compress the clay around where you've shaped it. I'm gonna match up these sides. I could probably flip it now. Smooth the sides together. Now I could kind of squish it a little bit, just a little bit, just to get those sides kind of into the shape I want. So now I'm going to use my knife tool and I'm going to cut out the circle. Okay, you can smooth that a little bit. Now you could kind of stick your finger in there and help it get the shape that you want it to be. I've just got to look at the profile of it. I want my spout to kind of go whoop up a little bit more, and I want it to be a little bit rounder. So I'm gonna just kind of pinch the bottom where I kind of want it to start to slope. And then I want this to be sloped more. So I'm gonna kind of use my thumb and pinch it down into the shape I want. Like that's getting more like the picture. It's got kind of upwards reservoir. They kind of had like a sharp angle kind of right here that kind of flattened it out. I'm gonna add a little bit of clay to the edges. It almost fanned out a little bit. So maybe I'll just add a little bit on the sides and then I could shape it. Now I just need to kind of finish the top. So they have it as a circle. Now it's all out of shape, obviously, so just cut it to be an actual circle. They have a little bit of a lip on this edge, so I'm just gonna kind of make a circle around it. And what I'll do is I'll put my finger in here. I'm going to press down the outside part of the circle, give it a little bit of a lift for the middle. And I'm just using a paintbrush to smooth that crease really good. I'm going to finish my spout. Let's see, a circle about yay big, I suppose. Looks about right. Gonna use my little scooper tool and just scoop that clay out. You definitely want to make sure that that reservoir is totally scooped out. Otherwise, you won't get any oil to your wick. And then I could go with my finger on the inside with a little bit of water. And if I could reach some of those seals and seal up those inside seams. Bum, 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 bum. There it is. My oil lamps are out of the kiln. They have completed their first bisque fire. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to try to seal them using an ancient technique, which is with milk. I've never done this before. We're gonna give it a try and see if it works. What this is gonna do is it's gonna help prevent the oil from like leaching into the clay and then onto whatever surface it's sitting on, because the clay is obviously very porous and it will absorb all that olive oil, and then eventually it'll start kind of leaking onto the surface, whatever tabletop you have, because this is not glazed, you know, and glaze on ceramics is what would protect your liquid from kind of coming out. And so hopefully the milk will create a barrier on the inside of the lamp to prevent that from happening, since way back in the day they didn't use glaze for a lot of these older pieces of pottery. The first method I'm going to use is to try sealing the lamps with cold milk. I will soak the inside and outside with cold milk for 30 minutes. Then I'm going to fire them in the kiln at 500 degrees Fahrenheit for a couple hours. The second method, I will try sealing the lamps with warm milk and simmering them on the stovetop for about 15 minutes. Once I've completed both of these different methods, I will add oil to the lamps and see which method actually seals the clay. Oh, hello. You're so precious. I got my supplies ready. Let's fill it with oil. First, we have to put the wick in. I just kind of measure what I think would fit. You want the wick to stand out a little bit, and then you want a little bit of excess in there so that, you know, you could pull the wick out. I'm gonna push the wick in, and then I have a bent up safety pin, or this is a paper clip, and I could just kind of use that to push it in. There we go. Now I'm pulling it through. There we go. That's good. And then I'll just let this go inside there. Go in there. Okay. And then I'm going to use my handy dandy funnel, and I will funnel in just regular olive oil, because olive oil would have been readily used in ancient times, and they used it as fuel for their lamps back in the day. So that's what we're going to use. The oil lamps have been sitting for a little over a week with the olive oil inside of them, and we could see the results to see which process sealed with the milk. Now this is the lamp that was soaked in cold milk only, and as you could see, it's left a very big oil stain. All of the oil has leached out of the clay body. And actually, I think it's probably been absorbed into the clay body, because there's nothing left in here. It's dry. This is the lamp that was soaked in the warm simmering milk. And if you see, there's only a tiny bit of oil that got on the paper. So this method really worked. Simmering it in warm milk really does seal the inside of it. It's still full of olive oil. So the results are clear. You really can seal your ceramics with simmering milk. That's pretty cool. Okay, let's light the lamps and see if they work. Cool. That's awesome. Thank you so much for watching my little show and watching my technique in making an oil lamp. If you'd like to join me on my journey learning with clay, please subscribe and give me a thumbs up. Also, if you happen to have $2 to spare, you could join my Patreon, and I do giveaways, and I actually, I will do a giveaway of an oil lamp. That's what I'm going to do this month. So if you would like to win one of my little miniature oil lamps, I'll do a Patreon giveaway. So for $2, you could win a Patreon lamp if you want to be one of my Patreons. And anyway, you could check out my website, hardshellslimysnail.com, to see what other goodies I have for sale and to keep up with the news on classes or possible pottery shows that I'm attending. Anywho, thanks for watching. All right, bye.